I never understood how immature I was until I watched this video, simply for the fact that the man was able to forgive and move on with his life. I don't think I would ever be in a position to forgive someone after I spent 4 years of my life in prison and have to register as a sex offender. But yeah, with that being said, I am extremely immature compared to this man. Without further ado, let's get straight to the video.
So imagine everything you have ever worked for, your education, your family, your future, gone in the blink of an eye. It happened to Brian Banks when he was just 16 years old. Take a look. Football star Brian Banks dominated the field as a high school linebacker and had accepted verbally a full scholarship to USC. But then the unthinkable happened when he was accused and convicted of raping a classmate.
I was a 16-year-old boy taken away from my mom, my freedom, my football team, my family. July 25th was the first day that I stepped foot in Chino State Prison. That's how I spent my 18th birthday.
Although Brian always maintained his innocence, he says his lawyer advised him to take a plea deal. Brian spent 5 years in prison and another 5 years as a registered sex offender. When his accuser tried to reconnect on Facebook nearly a decade later, she confessed to Brian and his legal team that she had lied.
Did he rape you? No, he did not rape. Did he kidnap you? No.
Please welcome Brian Banks.
Before we introduce Brian, let me give you guys this story. I had met this girl on Tinder. This was like our 7th time hanging out. We were just watching a movie one day and she was like, "Are you into foreplay? Are you into like reenactments when it comes to sex?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. You know, I'm a freak. I have a little freak in me." And she was like, "Well, I have this fantasy that I want to role play." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up? What you trying to do? Let's do it. I'm all for it." She was like, "Well, it's kind of different, but if you're not into it, it's just completely fine." I'm like, "Bro, just fucking tell me. I'll be down for anything." Right. And she was like, "Well, I kind of want you to just take it." My dick went soft immediately. "What do you mean take it? Take what? What are you talking about?" She was like, "Well, you know, it's a fantasy. I always have like these rape fantasies, but if you're not comfortable, I don't want to, I don't want to force you." I was like, "Of course I'm not comfortable." I'm like, "First of all, you're white. That's definitely not going to happen. And second, I don't want to put myself in a position to where I do something with you and then you come back later and say, yeah, he did this without my permission." Like when it comes to rape, I don't play around like that. I don't give a fuck if it's foreplay, fantasy. Like when she said role play, I'm thinking she meant, "Oh, I'll be Batman and you'll be Catwoman and then we role play some shit out." But if you talking about rape, that's a non-starter, bitch.
It makes my heart ache.
Yeah, still hurts mine too.
You served 5 years in prison for a crime you did not commit.
Yeah.
And the future was so bright for you when she made that false allegation.
Yeah.
When she contacted you after you'd served your time, you'd already gotten out, when she contacted you, what do you think she wanted?
That's still something that I can't really put a finger on. I know that when she initially reached out, her words were she was hoping that we could allow bygones to be bygones, that she was very immature at the time that she made these allegations, but could assure me she was much more mature now, wanted to hang out, wanted to try and rekindle something that never really existed. It was as if she was oblivious to what had actually happened and what her lies caused in my life.
She's trying to subdue her demons through you, as in she felt so guilty where she wants to feel comfort towards the person she accused. That's all it is.
Back when you were in high school, you had a consensual sexual encounter with this woman in a stairwell,
Yeah,
which she later said was rape.
right.
Then not only did she accuse you criminally, but her mother and she sued the school
Right.
and won a $1.5 million judgment.
It was a settlement. The school district made many attempts to contact my attorney to join in the fight to prove my innocence, and they were unsuccessful at that. And that led them to having to settle for a $1.5 million settlement.
Do you think, I know you can't get into her head, but do you think the whole thing was a scam for money?
I don't think that originally it was a scam for money. I think that right after my arrest, her mother saw an opportunity to turn this into a money situation.
You're sitting in prison. You took the plea deal because your lawyer said you're facing 40 years in prison.
Yeah.
I can get you around 5. The lawyer didn't do enough in your view.
Not only did she say she could get me to a deal of 5 years, it was a deal for probation. That was the initial deal that I was proposed, that I promise you, if you take this deal, you will get probation. At the most, you'll get about 3 years. You've already served a year, you'll do about 18 more months, you'll still be young, you can get out and play football. But if you don't take this deal and you walk into that courtroom, you're probably gonna have an all-white jury, you're a big black teenager, they're gonna automatically assume you as guilty based off of your looks, and you will get that 41 years to life in prison. So I was pretty much at the age of 17, placed in a room, and to this day, I'm 32 years old. I have never made a decision harder in my life. Do I walk into this courtroom and take a deal for a crime that I didn't commit, or do I walk into this courtroom and risk my entire life in prison for a crime I didn't commit? I realized after a year of fighting this case, I wasn't going home.
You had to be careful. It's a bet you couldn't afford to lose. When you were sitting, you know, an innocent man sitting in prison knowing he didn't do it, and you went to prison on your 18th birthday, on his 18th birthday. Describe that for us, the feelings you had there.
Helpless, fear, every negative emotion you can think of, all the way down to anger and revenge and wanting people to be held accountable for what had happened to me, paranoia, not knowing who really to trust, and not knowing where my life was going to be going now that I'm 18 years old and I'm headed to prison for a 6-year sentence. It felt like the end of the world for a very, very long time.
There's so many guys that's dealing with this right now that's in prison that no one talks about. He just so happened to be one of the victims that managed to get out because the person came out and said, yo, he actually didn't rape me. So imagine the victims that's in jail right now that the accuser never came to their rescue. Imagine the women that's never going to come out and liberate the guys that's in jail.
My only dream in the world was to just be free and to have the same opportunity as everybody here.
That was my guest, Brian Banks, at 27 years old, celebrating his freedom and his exoneration of rape charges that landed him in prison for over 5 years. When he was just 16, Brian was wrongfully accused of raping a classmate in the stairwell of their high school, a crime he did not commit. He spent 5 years in prison, 5 years on parole as a registered sex offender, and he is back with us now. He's joined by Justin Brooks, the director of the California Innocence Project, who helped to exonerate Brian. Thank you both so much. The critical moment was her contacting you, coming to see you at work to talk about the fact that she had lied. You actually weren't at work. You were at an office you set up with cameras because you were getting smart about what was going to be needed to clear your name. And how did you get her to say on camera that it wasn't true?
I knew that it was imperative that she came forward. The only way that the California Innocence Project was able to help me in my case was if the witness in my case came forward and recanted. The only witness was her.
Because there was no DNA, there was never anything to really support this charge.
There was no
other than her
physical
words.
There had been no DNA to start with, so it's very hard to unring the bell when there's been a criminal conviction. In Brian's case, there was no evidence except for her word.
Which was conflicting even back then. There were conflicting stories.
There should have been DNA. It wasn't a late report case. It wasn't like someone coming to the police a week later and saying they were raped. It was the same day. So a rape kit was done and there was no DNA.
So she agrees to speak to a man you identified as a private investigator and just comes right out with it. Did your jaw hit the floor?
So they did a rape kit and they didn't find any DNA of this guy, but he still got convicted. So basically her words versus his, but her word is more powerful because she's the person that came forth. I don't think people should have that type of power where you could just say, yeah, he did something and the whole world believe you. I don't give a fuck about, oh, believe all women. It's horse shit. I do not believe all women. I said it. I don't give a fuck. I do not believe all women. This guy just spent 5 years in prison and another 5 year on probation, people ridiculing his name, probably was struggling to find a job then, dealing with anxiety, depression, and she just gets away scot-free. That's fucked up.
My jaw hit the floor the moment she made contact on Facebook. She was very adamant about wanting to hang out as if nothing had ever happened. And so I said, well, if you want to hang out, how about you come meet me at my job during my lunch break and we can talk, which really was a private investigation firm. I had contacted a PI and told him, you know, I need this girl to come forward and admit what she lied about. And this could risk me going back to prison by coming in contact with her. So at least let me have everything recorded so that if something goes wrong on my end, I can protect myself that way.
He'd been walking around with an ankle bracelet. I mean, he was in prison behind bars, and then he was in prison in his home, right? I mean,
I actually brought it with me.
Look at that thing.
I keep it on my desk ever since the day I cut it off his leg. And this is the reason why I took on Brian's case. The California Innocence Project is a law school clinic at California Western School of Law in San Diego. And we actually only take on cases where people are incarcerated, because California has more incarcerated people than anywhere in the United States. Brian is the only client I've ever taken on who wasn't actually in prison. And it was when he showed me this on his ankle and said, I will be in prison the rest of my life. I'll be a convicted sex offender. I won't be able to get work. I won't be able to live where I want to live. And it was just such a compelling story that we took it on.
Because not only did you lose your freedom and the emotional state you had of hope and optimism going into your aspiring NFL career, but you lost that career.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows how much money you could have made, what your life would have looked like. You did, however, have somewhat of a happy ending on that front. Can you tell us what you did?
So after, she came forward and the California Innocence Project helped me regain my freedom, get my life back, I made a plea to the press that I'd been training for a shot at the NFL, and there was a team that wanted to give me a shot to call me, and right away, Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks gave me a call, followed by a number of other coaches. I went on tryout for a number of NFL teams before signing with the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh.
It's unbelievable. And the amount of grit that it must have taken for you to come back. I will say the lawyer who encouraged him to take that plea deal, ever apologize?
No, haven't had any contact since.
Think of that.
But it's not just about that lawyer and this plea.
No, it's about much more than
I don't think lawyers should be apologizing, in my opinion. The fuck, what is the lawyer gonna say? They're just doing their job. They don't care if you're guilty or not. They just want to get paid and help their client win the case. I don't think it's anything personal. If anything, the woman should be apologizing. The woman should give the $1.5 million back to the school. She the one that's supposed to be apologizing, not the lawyer.
that.
Exactly.
And that's what they're doing here today, is to explain how they're using this experience to help others. That's after the break. Wrongfully convicted of raping a classmate. He spent 5 years in prison, another 5 as a registered sex offender before being exonerated with the help of the California Innocence Project. He is joined by Justin Brooks, who's the director of that project, and Brian's now teaming up with former prosecutor Lonnie Coombs.
Yes.
I knew I was going to screw it up, Lonnie. Coombs, to examine potential wrongful convictions of those behind bars. It's a series on Oxygen, our sister network, and it is called Final Appeal. Welcome back to you all, Lonnie. Thank you for being here as well. You're a former prosecutor.
Yes.
Working with the Innocence Project.
Yes.
To do what? What is your goal with this?
This show, Final Appeal, was an extraordinary opportunity and experience for Brian and I, because we took 4 cases, 4 people who have been convicted of killing someone and have been in prison for years, up to 30 years sometimes, always maintaining that they were wrongfully convicted and been fighting for their freedom.
But wait, everybody in prison maintains they were wrongfully convicted. So how
Yes.
did you figure out which ones
Yes.
were worth spotlighting?
So we looked at a lot of cases. We had a lot of people going through them and deciding these are worth looking at, and they were all pending a hearing or some type of review. So there was some urgency to it. Like there could have been a decision made. They could have had this opportunity of freedom. So what we were doing when we were looking at it and investigating it, we actually had the opportunity to perhaps impact that in a way that could really help them or not. We went in with an open mind. We didn't take sides. We looked at all of the evidence that had been presented, the case against them, the trial, everything they had done since their conviction. And then we went and hit the ground and looked at everything that we could do today. We talked to people, we went to the crime scene, we redid investigations to see what we could uncover.
The thing is, it's not easy to get something like this overturned or to get a man exonerated, even when you have a woman on camera, Justin. You said even once you had this accuser on camera, it wasn't like, okay, it's done, he's innocent.
Yeah, we always have the problem of what evidence can we present in a courtroom. So there's all the stuff we know in the real world, but will it pass all the tests we need to get it in? And there were problems with the video in that a judge could have ruled that it's inadmissible. And then by the time we got to the hearing, the young lady had recanted her recantation when she realized she was going to have to pay the money back that she got from the county. So fortunately, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office joined us in a joint investigation in the case. They became convinced that Brian was innocent, and they walked into court and said the words I never hear and dream of, which are, "We concede."
Wow. You have a life motto.
Yes.
And it's, if you can maintain it after all you
Yeah.
have been through, maybe it'll help some of our viewers. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, simply the power of choice. It's not what you go through, but how you allow it to affect you and what you choose to do moving forward. There was a period of my life where I felt, like I said, I had every negative emotion you could think of. And one day I had this epiphany that I'm not in control over the things that are taking place in my life, but I am in control of me while going through these unwanted situations. And so that was the way that I made my way out of hell, was to know that I wanted more for me than anybody else wanted. And I knew my truth. I was going to stick to it. And it was all the power of choice. How I chose to look at things, how I chose to respond, what I chose to do moving forward. And it has me here today working with Lonnie Coombs on Final Appeal and helping people who can't help themselves.
This is the level of maturity that I was talking about. Like, I know myself. I'm not strong enough to go on camera and tell them, oh, yeah, this is what I did to go through this process. I know myself. I'm not that strong of a person. The way I think about it is, okay, you took 5 years from my life. Now I need to get back at you. Maybe it's the immaturity in me. Maybe through time, I'll be able to forgive the people that do me wrong. But for now, it's a big fuck you. I'm just not at that level yet. But as far as like women falsely accusing men, I think it's a problem that we need to address. But I think it's better if women come out and start talking about it. I feel like if other women talk about it, then people will take it more seriously and actually listen to the men that's complaining in jail right now. But that's all I have for the video. Thanks for watching. I'm out. If you like that video, I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. So like, share, subscribe, and get me there.